Okay, Chair, the floor is yours.
Call me if you're going to help, okay?
All right. Here we are. Today is February 2nd. Welcome to the regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting. We have a quorum, and I will call the meeting to order. I'd like to welcome our newest commissioners, Commissioner Jennifer Ford and Commissioner Bill Roshan. You guys want to introduce yourselves briefly, or?
Sure. I'll start, I guess. My name's Jennifer Ford, but I go by Jen. But if you call me Jennifer, it's okay. I'll still answer. I just might think I'm in trouble. But I'm just really excited to be here and to represent our city. And I just want to thank everyone. And I'm excited.
Hi, everyone. Bill Roshan, one of the new members, and I'm happy to be part of the commission. Happy to join you all. I'm an architect, so I hope that that's a skill set that might be helpful on the commission, and look forward to working with you all. Thank you.
Right. Well, we're glad to have you. Thank you for volunteering. You both had excellent resumes and excellent backgrounds, and I'm sure you'll bring a lot to the commission. And I hope I can speak for all of us and say we're excited to have you. So moving right along, let me get back to my agenda here. We had a moment of silence last time. Let's go ahead and have a moment of silence if you don't mind. Okay, I think everybody appreciates that. Susan does. All right, so we'll move right into planning commissioner announcements. Other than our new folks, do we have any planning commissioner announcements? Susan, I see you.
Yeah, I also wanted to welcome our new members. I've had the good fortune to be able to chat with both of them. I'm real excited. I think we've got some good new additions, and I want to welcome Jesse back. Really pleased to see that we still got you in the chair there. Also wanted to mention that our new council liaison is Jeff Heller. I don't remember if we'd talked about that before, but I had an opportunity to chat with him too, and I'm looking forward to sort of making those connections maybe a little stronger, so we do have that link to City Council. And then the other thing was I was able to listen in. Vistra Energy did a listening session this morning with chamber members, and I'll be hearing more about them tomorrow. And I think they also did something with City Council, which I missed. But they have a proposal for a project on the power plant site, which I think we'll all be dealing with down the road. But wanted to let the public know that if they go to the city's website and the Hot Topics page, they can see the PowerPoint that Vistra presented. And there are some really interesting land use restriction issues and deed restrictions that go along with the plant that may affect all of our pie-in-the-sky dreams that we may have had. And of course, they know more about the condition of the plant, too. So that will, I'm sure, be coming up a lot more later down the road. But, especially for the public that is so interested in these things, it might be good for them to start educating themselves on it. And that's it.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to... sorry, I'm having to scroll back and forth here. Election of chair and vice chair. Should I hand this over to you, Cindy?
Thanks, Jesse. So this item is to elect the chair and vice chair, and I guess I would start it out with the chair position. Do we have any nominations for the position of chair, Susan?
I nominate Jesse.
Are there any other nominations for chair? Is there a vote? All in favor for chair? Chairperson position to be Jesse, excuse me?
Aye.
Yes, absolutely.
Aye.
Okay, that was quick and takes care of that. Do I have any nominations for the position of vice chair? Jesse?
May I nominate Susan, please?
Susan. Any other nominations? Is there a vote for affirming Susan as vice chair? All in favor?
Aye.
That is unanimous. Congratulations, our new chairperson, Jessie Barone, and Vice Chair Susan Stewart. And thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we'll bring it back. And open public comment. This is the part of the meeting where we take public comment on items not on the agenda. If you cannot wait to speak to the item as it comes up, but since we only have one, I would imagine most people should be able to wait. So, Zeke, do we have anybody in the queue wishing to speak to public comment?
I do see a raised hand in the queue, Chair. Just a moment. Betty Windholtz, I'm going to go ahead and unmute her.
Thank you, sir.
And by the way, this is Anthony for you this evening from AGP.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry,
No
Anthony.
No problem whatsoever. Here we go. Okay, Betty, you are unmuted.
Thank you. This is Betty Winholtz, and I want to say that this is not about something on the agenda tonight, but I was hoping maybe someone from planning staff could address it. They are doing flagging one way on Quintana near La Loma today about noticing underground utilities, I assume for the pipeline construction for the WRF. There's no survey markers out, but I'm just wondering if we're starting to roll on that end of the pipeline conveyance system rather than the other end, or if they're going to be doing both at the same time. And to what degree have the neighbors in the neighborhood been noticed so they'll know how to get in and out of their neighborhood since they won't be able to access Quintana? Thank you.
Thank you, Betty. Anthony, is there anybody else wishing to speak?
Chair, I do not see any raised hands left in the queue.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and bring it back to the commission and close public comment at this time. Cindy, is that more of a PWAP thing or a Public Works thing?
Yeah, I can. I wrote down the information that Ms. Winholt stated, so I'm happy to forward it to Public Works and have them follow up with her first thing in the morning. It's my understanding that they would be required to have a traffic control plan if that work is impacting in the public right-of-way, which sounds like it would be. So I am happy to follow up and respond to Ms. Winholtz in the morning.
Thank you, Cindy. Appreciate that. Okay, if that's it, we'll go ahead and bring it back and go to item A, the consent calendar. Do we have anybody wishing to pull anything from the consent calendar? Okay, I don't see anybody wishing to pull anything. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve the consent calendar.
No, seconding.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, I suppose?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 5-0. I'm an aye as well. All right, so moving right along. We'll go to item B, public hearings, CUP 20-112 and CDP 20-022, approval of coastal development permit and a conditional use permit to allow a new recycling center consisting of 216 square foot cargo containers on a 750 square foot pad in the undeveloped area north of the Spencer's Market along Main Street. All right, Cindy, or I'm sorry, Nancy.
Okay, here we go. Are you guys seeing a PowerPoint presentation?
Not yet.
I've got
Yeah, I've got it.
Okay. So as Jesse said, this is a public hearing to consider a conditional use permit, coastal development permit for the site at 2650 Main Street, which is the site owned by the Spencer Market. Existing site information, this shows you an outline of the site. It's 5.13 acres. Existing uses are Taco Temple and Spencer's Market. And the center of the site is a large parking lot with 4 driveways, 2 on Elena and 2 on Main. The site has 2 undeveloped areas on each side of the Spencer's Market. The zoning is MCR R4, North Main Specific Plan Area, and this allows commercial uses, including ancillary uses supporting primary uses, which is the key for recycling related to grocery store, and it allows the recycling center as a special use permit. Special requirements for recycling centers, the Morro Bay Municipal Code Special Use Section allows recycling centers because they are considered a special use. They need a special review to review compatibility surrounding uses and consideration of effects, noise, odor, traffic, etc. The other applicable policy is the Morro Bay Cargo Container Policy, which allows containers in the M1, M2, C2 zones, and MCR allows C2 zone uses. So that's a long way of getting to cargo containers are allowed in this zone. They require fencing and screening in accordance with the municipal code, which requires only screening along the public right-of-way, which would be Elena in this case. The recycling center need, AGS is the proposed operator, and they provide a cash-back recycle center operation. Other Central Coast cash-back recycling centers are in Aurora Grande and Guadalupe, and that was operated by AGS as well. Other operators operate centers in San Luis Obispo, Santa Maria, Oceano, and Paso Robles. Products accepted: aluminum, glass, plastics, and metal. And AGS accepts clean recycle waste, which eliminates odors that attract pests. Their program educates customers on how to efficiently collect and submit qualified materials. All materials are stored in the containers until they're full, and then the container is removed and replaced with a new sanitized container. Cash-back recycle centers encourage cleaner environments and provide a source of cash for charities and other worthy causes. Previous recycle center approval: in 1987, a recycle program was established on this site in approximately the same location, and it was required in 1987 by the California Beverage Container Recycling and Litter Reduction Act. It is still in effect. Most recent update, I believe, was March 2020. The proposed facility is in the same location as the previous facility, and it looks like the previous facility closed at the end of 2015 from, I think, an economic impact. Project site plan. This shows the Spencer's Market on the right side of the site plan and Elena Street on the left. The recycle area gives you a little idea of the scope compared to the existing building. The gravel pad is going to be sized to accommodate the 2 cargo containers, fencing with a gate. So they're proposing full site fencing, which requires a little larger site in order to get a bifold gate that will open the entire width of the facility. It is not a self-serve facility. It'll be staffed from 9 to 5. The site will be cleaned and secured at the end of every day. No recycle items are going to be allowed to be left outside. Public comment concerns included primarily traffic. The applicant has informed me that they estimate 25 to 30 customers per day, generally people already visiting the grocery store. And in a prior project traffic study, that study indicated this type of facility generated 7 new vehicle trips per day, one of which was the employee. Noise was another concern, and all materials collected and stored in the containers. Compressor is inside the container for bundling recycled products. The containers and the fencing will help mitigate any possible noise. Sanitation: no food waste is accepted. Materials should be clean. Containers are closed and secured each day. Containers are sanitized and replaced frequently, and the site will be monitored and cleaned daily. So, project photo simulation. And the containers' distance to each other can vary. It really depends on ease of pickup and removal and how the gates operate. So there is a condition in the conditions of approval that allows them to make minor changes to the site plan once they can get a gate operator to explain what distance is required to get those gates to bifold to have complete open front side for removal of containers. So it's required to be screened from Elena in this case, which would be only on the north side, but the project is proposing full fencing with a gate. And as I mentioned, that requires a larger gravel area for the gate operation. Project signage is included in this request, and it's 2 signs, an instructional sign with the recycled items collected and hours of operation, and there'll be 2 of those for 12 total square feet. And there are 2 operator logo signs on the front gates, and there will be 2 of those for 40 total square feet. I added this condition if the Planning Commission wanted to consider it. It's not in the current resolution, but it could be added. And this is an additional requirement to make sure that the site is kept clean. So the gist of it is that the site area will be monitored at the beginning and the end of each day to ensure that recycle items and or related trash are removed from the site area. The site area includes the inside of the fenced area as well as the area surrounding the recycle center. And that concludes the staff presentation, and the staff is recommending approval of the Conditional Use Permit 20-12 and Coastal Development Permit 20-022 pursuant to the findings and conditions of approval included in Resolution 02-21.
Let me unmute. Okay, unmuted. Thank you, Nancy. Do we have any questions for Nancy or Cindy? Jen?
I have a few. Can you hear me okay? Just making sure.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right. My first question is, what was the traffic estimate? What was that based off of? Was that based off of the prior usage before it closed on the other facility, or is this based?
No.
What is this based off of?
It's based on the operator in another location, a similar facility.
Okay. And then I had another question about, are there any requirements as far as is this local staffing, or do we even know about that, or is that even a part of what we do here? I'm still learning, as far as the commission goes, but I was just curious, trying to stimulate our local economy here. I know the facility itself will help with that, but what about local employment?
So we can ask the applicant. They are in the queue, and once we're ready for public comment on this item, they will speak first, and you have a chance to ask them specific questions.
Okay, and then I have one last question. Should I hold that or let?
No, go ahead.
Bill
No, please go ahead.
Okay, my last question. Well, actually, part of it was answered earlier, Susan. You were asking about that back lot on the south side, but we were talking about how that, the neighborhood over there would also be affected. I was reading through the public comment and the concern over it being in a residential area. Is this the only site that the applicant would consider, or is this the only one that could possibly work for this applicant? Because I was just wondering if this is the only option.
So the applicant can probably expand on this because this is not my area of expertise.
Okay.
But the California recycle requirement, at least in 1987, it required grocery stores to be able to accept return cans and bottles that had a deposit return. And if they didn't have a facility on their site, they would be fined. Okay. And so I don't know what happened when the economy kind of resulted in the elimination of a lot of cash back recycle centers. I don't know if Spencer's is operating something out of the back of the store, but I think in the most cases, they are required to have that service for their customers.
Okay, because in the back of my mind, I was just thinking of another location that might be optimal, and of course, the applicant would probably be the one to answer this too, is Quintana Plaza over, I know currently it's being used right now by Fitness Works, their outdoor area, but it's kind of hidden. It's not in the residential area, and it's also near downtown, or it's in downtown. And so I was just curious if it was at all open to somewhere else, or if this was the final. So that's it. That's all I had. Thank you.
Okay, looks like Bill had some questions.
Yeah, Nancy, a couple of questions. One, I looked carefully at the drawings and a little concerned about the durability of the screening. And the reason I say that is, one, it's in a very visible area. It's, right on the street, close to a residential area. So if this is the selected location, we want to make sure that it looks good when it's built, but it stays looking good for a long time. The problem with wood is when you're moving those big, containers in and out, it takes one touch on a wood post and you're not looking so good. So I guess my question to you, do we want to think about a more durable fencing and screening, probably something more in steel and wood rather than just wood? And the second question I had was the gravel. Again, you're going to have, I would think, a lot of materials, maybe even broken glass, as you're moving stuff in and out. Wouldn't it be easier to clean a concrete pad? And I think these are pretty simple things, but I wanted to run them by you, see if there's any kind of standards, county-wide, and get your take on at least those durability issues.
So again, the applicant can expand on this, but I believe that they have a 1-year lease agreement with Spencer's for that site. And so both of the items that you talked about are very permanent. They affect water runoff and they're more costly. So the previous operation operated on gravel with, I don't know if they had a fence at all, but when that business left, they hauled the container away and the site was restored back to its original condition. So I think it's a good question to ask the applicant, but my guess is it's cost and permanency and would involve more construction because of the water runoff.
So then let me ask you this question. This is a conditional use permit. What's the limitation of the conditional use? Is it restricted to 1 year?
I don't think it is, but I think you could put a limit on it.
I think you have to coordinate those two things. I understand the possible temporary nature, but then the conditional use is running longer than that. I would be reluctant to put in a temporary facility with a longer conditional use position.
Okay, we can get into that a little bit more in the comments, I think. Let's try and stick to the questions here for a second. Joe, it looks like I'm sorry, Bill, did you have any more questions before
A real quick one. I was also curious about, there's going to be a worker, an employee out there all day long. Is there any accommodation for the employee at the site? I didn't see anything on the drawings, like where do they stand, where do they sit, how do they, I don't know. I mean, that's a general question. What do you think, Nancy?
Well, what I've seen before is people have a table and chair in the container, and when they're working, they bring it out. But if you're talking about facilities to get water and take breaks, then that might be included in their lease agreement with Spencer's.
And quickly, like even for maintenance, is there access to water? Last question.
I don't know the answer. We can ask the applicant.
Okay, real good. Joe?
My two questions. One was similar to the one just asked. If there was any need or provisions for the employee's kiosk or scales or cash register or anything. I didn't see anything listed. And then the other question I had was, is there anything in the way of specific details in the code provision for the screening, as the maximum height, kinds of materials, et cetera, or is the code provision for the screening pretty general and vague?
It requires screening, and the rest of it is our normal fence. I mean, 6 foot. So you can't have 8-foot fencing, but you can have 6.5-foot fencing, and it wants screening. We don't allow. Well, I have to check it. I'm not sure if we allow chain link in that area. I don't think we do.
Okay.
So to have a solid fence, you're going to have wood or vinyl.
Sounds good.
Susan, did you have anything for Nancy? Okay, I don't have any questions either, so I think at this point we'll bring it back and open it up for public comment.
So Jake is the applicant. He's in the queue.
Okay. We normally allow the applicant to speak first, so we'll continue with that. Anthony is.
Yeah, I see Jake in the attendee queue. Did you want me to go ahead and unmute him then?
If you would, sir, yes.
Okay, will do. Please stand by. Jake, are you there? I'm trying to unmute your...
Oh, I'm sorry.
There we go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Jake,
you are
we hear
live.
Okay, I have with me Mr. Arroyo, which is the AGS Inc. owner and operator. And so he can answer a lot of your specific questions relating to the operation. And I can be able to respond to other general questions that you may have.
Okay, well, what we might do is go ahead and take public comment if you have that, and then continue with public comment, and then maybe come back to you with questions if that's okay.
Certainly.
So do you want to make a statement at this time?
No, as Mr. Arroyo is in agreement with the proposed condition as well as the proposed added condition recommended by city staff.
Very good. We'll come back to that. Okay, so if you don't want to make a statement, we'll go ahead and continue public comment and see if there's anybody else in the queue that wishes to speak.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Chair. I do have Betty Winholtz with her hand up. I'm going to go ahead and unmute Betty.
Thank you, Anthony. Ms. Winholtz?
Thank you. Thank you. This is Betty Winholtz again. Just 3, maybe 4 comments. I appreciate the additional condition regarding cleaning up both within and outside the fence. I do hear the neighbors' concerns about noise and sighting, and there are a few trees that are missing in that row of trees outside the fencing area. I'm wondering if it would be worth it to replant some trees there so you have a solid tree screen between the trees and Elena Street, and then the neighbors across the street might be a possibility. I like the idea of bringing up the Quintana shopping center because there used to be a recycling center there as well. And it is asphalt, and it is not near any residential neighborhood. And it does have the dollar store and the Family Dollar store and Albertsons there, which might make it worthwhile to go there because it's more commercial. And whether it's short term or long term, I think it might be a better location if that's a part, even a possibility. And I think, what's the other thing that I want to say? Oh, I wanted to bring up this piece of information, and I can't prove it, but in talking to a number of people that grew up here in the 40s and 50s, that piece of land just north of Spencer's used to be a burial site, and it was part of Del Mar community. Del Mar was a separate community from Morro Bay before the incorporation. And I know back in around 2012, one of the council members got some people together, and they kind of undid the rocks that were over the different sites and kind of rearranged that territory. But since there's only going to be gravel and no digging, maybe that's not a concern. But if there was going to be some kind of other work done there, I would think that would need to be investigated. So thank you.
Very good, Betty. Thank you. Okay. Public comment is still open. Let's see if we have anybody else that wishes to speak.
Thank you, Chair. I do not see any raised hands left in the queue.
Thank you, Anthony.
You're welcome.
Okay, going once, going twice. We'll go ahead and close public comment, bring it back to the commission. Do we have any commissioners wishing to ask questions of the applicant? Bill, your hand was up first. You're still muted. Oh, there you are.
Yeah, I'm good. So I guess I'd ask about the issues that we've been discussing. One is Nancy was really helpful in explaining that this might only be there for a year. My concern is, with the way it's being constructed, can we keep it clean if it's there longer? Can we keep it looking good if it's there longer? Any response from the ownership or the developer?
Yeah, this is Jake Raper. Again, I have Mr. Arroyo with me. He can answer a lot of the specific questions. But in general, I can go through some of the questions that you had before. The durability of the fencing and stuff. Basically, the reason why we needed to expand the site is to get the cargo container away from the sidewalk. A lot of complaints that I know the planning department had received from the neighborhood was based upon the previous buyback operation. Their cargo container was not screened. It was right behind the sidewalk. And so basically in working with city staff, the applicant agreed to screen the entire site, move basically with a bifolding gate. That way it'd be screened after it's closed. And so the fencing would be 2 feet back from the sidewalk. And then the bifolding gates would be about 7 feet once they're folded back. So the cargo container would be approximately 9 to 10 feet back from the back of the sidewalk. This will allow the customers to come into the site rather than being on the sidewalk and in the parking lot as where the previous complaints, I think, generated from. Basically, as Nancy had indicated, that once the cargo container is full, the cargo container is removed, and once it goes to the site and it's emptied, it is sanitized, and the new container would be brought back to the site. The site is providing basically 3 feet on each side of the fence and 3 feet on the rear of the fence. And basically the truck can back in there, drop the cargo container without damaging the fence. Now, if the commission is concerned about the durability of the fence, the applicant would be open to an additional condition that says basically the fence has to be maintained in aesthetic quality at all times. So if it gets damaged, gets broken, and within 24 hours it can be repaired. And so that would, that provides, I think it addresses the concern of keeping the wood fence without being falling over and broken and so on and so forth. The lease agreement is for 1 year with an option of extending. And so basically the applicant would not be supportive of providing concrete base there because it creates additional issues with water absorption and runoff and so on and so forth. Plus, it is an extra cost associated with that. As far as cleanup, basically, again, the cargo containers are back about 8 to 10 feet from the back of the sidewalk, and any kind of mess is going to be contained on site. And so at end of each day and beginning of each morning, the staff will clean the site and get ready for the day of activity. Now, in terms of the employees, they have access to the picnic benches there at Spencer's Market for their lunch half hour. They're also authorized to use the restroom facilities within Spencer's Market as part of the agreement. So they do have facilities they go to. In terms of the operation, basically the staff would have a chair or stand outside to welcome the customer. And so they would not have a table. They would not have umbrellas and so on and so forth. So basically, he wants them to stay busy, but Mr. Arroyo can answer how the staffing is working with other locations as well.
And Jake, a quick follow-up. Your two other locations, are those locations screened as well?
No, actually they're not. One in Guadalupe, it is at the corner of, it's by a Quick Mart. It's in the back parking lot, and it's right adjacent to an apartment complex. Basically, they have the block wall, the parking area, and then the apartment complex. They have not received any complaints in Guadalupe because of their operation as of today. And so,
about Arroyo Grande site?
Arroyo Grande is in San Luis Obispo County, and that's pretty well. It does have a residential unit next door to it, but they have not received any complaints with that operation there either.
And that one's not screened either?
That one is not. Well, it is screened with a chain link fence and wood slats.
All right, Bill. Any more questions?
Let's see.
Anybody else have any more questions for the applicant?
Well, one other concern, and Mr. Arroyo will be addressing the need for buyback centers for grocery markets. He's more attuned to the state law than I am, and so noise. Basically, all the operations are inside the container, so no outside operations are occurring. Basically, what will happen is we identified in the operations plan that there's a portable scale, which is run by batteries. The materials are placed in a plastic bin. They're weighed, and then from there, they're placed in the hydraulic compactor, and the items are compacted. And once they're compacted, they're bundled and stored within the container. So from a noise standpoint, it's pretty well isolated from the residential units. It's about, I would estimate, anywhere from 80 to 100 feet to the closest residential unit. And so noise should not be a concern. I read through the concerns of the public comments, and they were talking about customers parking on Ellen Street, and basically they do have access to the large parking lot, which they could access the buyback center itself. Now, what we could do as part of the recurring customers is advise them not to park on Ellen Street, but come in and park in the parking lot of Spencer's Market. And so I think the concerns that the previous operation created will not occur with the AGS operation. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Mr. Arroyo, and you guys can ask him specific questions relating to penalties for not having recycling centers, in more general, his operations that he is currently conducting at this point. So with that, here's Edgar.
Edgar. This company is run by a family, so been doing this for about 30 years, and pretty much we're self-contained. Everything goes inside the container, and I think he explained whatever I had to explain. He did pretty good. All the penalties for Spencer's Market. 1 minute. He's the one who actually contacted our company, and they receive a penalty of $100 per day. That's I think it's going to increase to $200 per day within the next 3 months. I think that's new regulations for the markets.
So do I understand you that there's going to be a penalty for all grocery stores that don't have recycling facilities? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, not all of them. I guess has to do with the money that you. I think it's more than $2 million. If you produce more than that, it's 200 or up to 300.
Okay. And California redemption value, is that the?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Do we have any more commissioners that wish to ask questions of either Jake or Edgar? Okay. Susan.
Just a quickie. I'm assuming because this kind of redemption recycling center, people are partly doing it to be able to get money for what they've collected. And I do know that often it is fundraising groups, kids' schools will collect stuff and bring it in and raise money for whatever. So there was some concern if people left things after hours, before hours, outside of the container. Seems to me that's less likely to happen since the goal is for people to collect money for it. But if that were to happen, who would take care of whatever's left outside? Is that up to Spencer's Market or is that up to the recycling company?
I think it's going to be a combination. If it's recyclable plastic or aluminum cans, that they would just incorporate and put it in their bins. But I really, but it's speculation as to what they would provide. But if it's just regular garbage, I think it'd be more of Spencer's responsibility. However, if it's blocking the entrance or the gates, the AGS staff would be taking care of it there. But again, keep in mind that the gates would be closed and they're a couple of feet back from the sidewalk. So it doesn't really invite people to dump stuff there. But it may occur, but I know the AGS operation would clean it up just to be good neighbors.
Okay. Any more questions from anybody else? Okay, I have a couple. At your other locations, I don't know quite how to put this. I'm just going to be very blunt.
Sure.
Is there an issue with homeless people, accumulating or kind of loitering, I guess is the right word, around the site?
And the answer is no. The Guadalupe site is not screened. It's open. So it's basically a parking lot that has a container there. And they take up about, I think, 3 or 4 spaces. And again, it's butted up against a block wall separating the commercial Quick Mart with the residential area. So it's all open. And again, they haven't had any issues or problems in the Guadalupe area. And we can give the contact with Nancy, with their planner, to verify that, or the police department, just to ensure that you have a level of comfort with that answer.
Okay. I mean, I don't know that that's my concern. I mean, and I'm not against homeless collecting, cans and recycling. I think that's a great function of society. It's a great function that they do, and we're probably better off for it as a society. But I think I was just asking: is there a provision we could add? Maybe this is more for Nancy than for Jake, but is there a provision we can add that we can kind of keep a tab on that? And if we have a complaint, maybe either from Spencer's or from the public, where we can mitigate if that becomes an issue.
Jesse, I think that would be.
I'm sorry, Nancy. Just a quick comment. As part of the operations plan, it is really identified no loitering is permitted around the AGS site. If they are there and they're loitering in their own Spencer's parking lot, that would be something that AGS staff could work with Spencer's, maybe contact the local police department if there is a serious loitering problem occurring. So with that, I'm sorry, Nancy, to interrupt you.
No, it's all right. So, Jesse, I talked to a couple of people at the city staff, and no one is aware of any complaints from 87 to 2015. And again, that was an open facility, no fencing. But I think any loitering around this or the grocery store or the liquor store or anywhere, a vaccine location would be either a code enforcement issue or a police issue.
Understood. Okay, if nobody else has any more questions for Jake and Edgar, we'll go ahead and close public comment and bring it back to the commission. Jake, do you have anything further to say before I do that?
Edgar, you have anything? I'm asking my boss. Hang on just a second.
No, I have nothing to say.
No, I think the staff report speaks for itself. Again, the applicant is in agreement with the proposed conditions and also the additional condition recommended by staff.
Okay, thanks, Jake. Thanks, Edgar. We'll get back to you if we have any more questions. We're going to go ahead and close public comment, bring it back to the commission, and start a discussion. Does anybody want to lead this thing off? Susan.
I'll just say, initially I read the plan, kind of excited to see it. I'm assuming it certainly sounds like it helps Spencer's out and can, again, help individuals and community groups that are trying to do a little fundraising along with being good neighbors. Then I read all the public comment stuff and I thought, wow, there's always something that comes up that you aren't really anticipating. Did wonder about putting it to the south side of the Spencer's building, but there are homes right along that edge too. You can see from the overhead map. I feel like, given that it sounds like it's a requirement either way for Spencer's to have it, it sounds like this should probably also be something up in the Quintana area. I'm not aware that Albertsons is doing something, but maybe they are. And they're a very busy store, so I'm assuming they have even more of a requirement to take care of this recycling stuff than Spencer's. So I did look at the company's website and looked at their philosophy, their family history with this. Was pretty impressed with what they've done and with their ethics. Sounds like a really great group. So I would personally love to see this go forward. I do like Nancy's condition, and certainly adding the clean site requirement and keeping up the property looking good. I do actually like the idea of adding more trees, and whether that should be on the applicant or maybe this can be part of our community tree bank, issue that we have talked about in the past. Would love to see that get going. And perhaps just since they are only doing a 1-year lease, a condition on it that we look at it again in a year and review it and hear from the neighbors how things are going. I think it's worth giving it a shot. So those would be my comments for now.
Thank you, Susan. Joe, looks like you want to.
I'm smiling because those are almost exactly what my comments are to be. I applaud them. I think this is a useful addition to Morro Bay and a needed one in view of all the junk that's accumulating everywhere in the environment, something that we need. I also favor the keeping the site clean amendment that came out of the development office. I also like the, adding an amendment that the applicant will maintain the fencing and either by sign or by explicit directions encourage them to park off street in the Spencer parking lot. I also, because we're essentially dealing with garbage, I think it'd be useful and even necessary that we reevaluate this after a year's time to see just how things have gone, a whole variety of concerns. I would very much to see that side street have a few additional trees, particularly because of what looks to me like the inadequacy of our screening code. In that, I looked at the rendering, and you see a fair amount of the storage boxes above the fence. I realize the fencing is designed probably more to conceal all the boxes and things that are brought to the place rather than the actual shipping containers, but nevertheless the shipping containers aren't all that attractive. And I was also just wondering if there was something, I was wondering how authoritative the fencing code was. Meaning, I'd love to see some sort of I don't know, like a lattice or something maybe even more, something transparent, perhaps a lattice on top of the fence that would do a little bit better job of concealing the top, 25 or 30% of the container that looks like it'll be visible, even after the screening is imposed. And I think that's about it.
Very good, Joe. Thank you. Bill.
So I have a couple more questions for Nancy. I'm sort of interested because I know these centers can be problems in neighborhoods. And the reason I'm kind of focusing on this one is I think the site's highly visible next to a residential area. In Morro Bay, Nancy, what requirements do we have for dumpster areas, like in a typical project? If you're going to have your trash area in an apartment building, does it have to be screened and enclosed? Do we have guidelines?
Has to be screened from public view.
I guess what I'm asking is, why would this not come under that same sort of policy, where this is basically trash in two very large dumpsters? And what we're allowing is, like before, this is an improvement over what we had before, which was no screening at all. But now, I mean, to Joe's point, 25% of the container is going to stick up above it. It's not a permanent thing. And my question would be, when you have dumpster areas that they have standards. What are those other standards? Like how the gates are made, how, landscaping. I'm not familiar, but does it make sense to apply those standards to this facility?
This is exceeding those standards.
Really?
Yes. They don't have... I'm not aware, Cindy can correct me, but I'm not aware of anything that would allow an 8-foot or 9-foot solid wall wood fence. So trash containers and recycle containers in commercial and apartment buildings are required to be screened from public view. But the screening requirements are fence requirements, which are a maximum height of 6 foot 6 inches.
Are there any landscape requirements along with those?
Not well. So in some cases, residential at least can use landscaping to screen, but that doesn't seem appropriate here. They need to use a fence to keep the site secure.
So there wouldn't be a requirement for landscaping?
There is not a requirement. I mean, you could require one again, but that also adds
longer thing. Yeah.
Yes.
So my last question is, I do agree with the other commissioners that we should look at it in a year. I want to give it some teeth. What's involved in terms of the conditional use permit? Let's say we review it in a year. Could it be administratively continued so that the applicant doesn't have to return to us? But if there's difficulty, let's say they haven't complied with maintaining, or there's other problems that the neighborhood is concerned about, then if we put the condition of limiting the conditional use permit to a year, that would give us a way to actually enforce those conditions.
Cindy, you want to take that one?
Yes, you can condition that they come back in a year. You most certainly can craft that condition that the applicant be afforded it to be administratively continued, subject to certain parameters. So if they don't meet those parameters, then it triggers a planning commission review. This planning commission has re-reviewed conditional use permits, actually several in the last 12 months. And at that time, at the re-review, added additional conditions if the performance of that use was not satisfactory to the commission.
So, Cindy, I mean, my ambition is to make this easier for the applicant. Mm-hmm. And if he does what he promises, no need to come back, right? Yeah. So I don't want him to have to reapply if he's doing a good job, but I want us to have a method that if it's not, right, if there are real complaints and real concerns, that we could have a method established now in this hearing that we could solve it. But would this not be a burden for him? I guess that's my question.
I'll let Nancy speak to the question of burden since she knows the applicant. But it is customary. The commission has previously allowed staff to make that director authorization, so that's well within the commission's prerogative to condition it that way. Yeah.
I guess, Nancy, with looking to your comments, I'd like to make that a consideration for the commission to make that a commission to make this an additional condition, and to allow it to be administratively reviewed. And if there's no issues, then it's a simple deal.
Okay, so I have 3 additional conditions. One is the one I had in the presentation, which is clean site maintenance. The second one is something to this effect: fence must be maintained to be in good condition and function to the community development director's satisfaction. And 3, review facility and operation in 1 year at an administrative level. And I think you're triggered to have planning commission review is if they're in violation of their conditional use permit or any conditions, then it's possibly going to be reviewed for revocation.
I think that's right.
Sounds what I have so far also. Jen, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Well, being almost last, I feel like everything's pretty much been covered. But I do want to say that, AGS survived, a few years ago when a lot of the facilities had to close. And so they are doing something right. And so I'm really glad that we have, this company coming here to Morro Bay. And I think that we will benefit from it. And after listening to all of the conditions and everything, I feel much more confident because when I saw this on the agenda, I was basing it off of my past experience with the recycling center, which was great to a certain aspect, but there was glass all over, and there was all the issues that have been brought up. So I have much more confidence in this, and based on all the recommendations that have been said. I would agree with all those. And then one last thing is that, when you're coming into a neighborhood, especially a residential neighborhood, even if putting trees up or lattice work or whatever it is that you do to beautify your business, it's always good to make a great impression on those neighbors who have to look at it every day. And I think that you might have a more positive reaction from your neighbors if you go above and beyond. So, not as a conditional, part of the contract here, but I think, just as a recommendation, since Jake and them are listening, it would be great if you maybe did that, some trees or something. So anyway, that's all I have to say.
Real good, Jen. Okay, I had a couple things I wanted to add. So I feel like we're biologically sensitive here, maybe a little more so. Maybe I'm imagining that, but I feel like we're at least a biologically sensitive community. And I was a little concerned about the rodent prevention. Keeping the rodents out of the containers. B, not using some sort of poison that would maybe hurt our predators, our falcons and our hawks and condors if they decided to, venture down here. So I'm wondering if we could condition this to have some sort of I don't even know how to word it. Nancy, can you help me out here? Something that they, some sort of a sensitive rodent prevention system.
How about trained rats to pick up the trash?
I was thinking of cats, adding cats to the thing.
I think cats are good. So, Jesse, my guess is that a large commercial operation like Taco Temple and Spencer's, they have a system. They're doing something. I don't think they have to be told to do something. I think rats in those areas are not popular.
Right. I just don't know that. Well, Taco Temple and Spencer's will have obviously environmental health type of programs where this system wouldn't. This is more of a trash collection system next to a grocery store. So, I mean, not incompatible uses for sure. But I would like to make sure that A, they're doing something, and B, they're doing something that's not harmful to the environment, I guess.
It sounded like they wouldn't accept anything unless it was clean.
Yeah. So anyway, that's my take. I mean, that was one thing I was talking about. I was thinking about. The other thing I was thinking about is in the event they decide to discontinue their contract with Spencer's, I wonder if we should put a sunset clause on here. So if they're not operating for 30 or 45 days, maybe we should ask them to pick their cargo containers up and move them. If in the event they choose to cease to have a contract with Spencer's.
My guess is you don't have to tell them that. Those cargo containers are their money makers. So I don't think that they would just leave them and stop operating. But we could certainly add a condition.
If the commission all thinks that we should, I am in favor of the 1 year re-review. I'd like Bill's idea of maybe putting some conditions or wording it in a way that they wouldn't have to actually come back and do this whole circus again. And you guys, staff is more than capable of doing that. So okay. Anyway, those are the three things I had, and everybody else has said good comments. Joe, looks like you want to say something else.
I would just like to reiterate that, in view of what I perceive as the inadequacy of the screening code provision, that we do, I would strongly encourage that we plant some additional trees on that residential street. And then the question for Nancy is given that the plantings typically as a screening device would go well above 6 feet 6 inches, do we in fact have any wiggle room at all as a planning commission to require some kind of lattice on top of that screening, not calling it a fence, but can we in any way accomplish that, or are we just prohibited from making anything that goes above 6.5 feet?
I don't think we can. Cindy?
So the Planning Commission could choose to grant an exception to that fence standard. And the Commission did that with the Sonic project, where they allowed an 8-foot fence to buffer the portion of the property that's adjacent to the residential area. So if there is a concern that the fencing, as you've reviewed it, is not adequate, you could allow additional height. However, you have to really offset that against, do you want, that height in a residential area for the pedestrians that are walking by? So balancing the two.
Well, I'm thinking of that. I should have looked at it before the meeting, but I didn't think of it. That facility that's on Main Street. How to describe it? I think it's an architect's property just beyond the freeway on-ramp and off-ramp, just past Limos.
The contractor storage yard? Yeah. Isn't
that fence above 6.5 feet? It seems sort of...
I don't know off the top of my head. The key difference with that is that's an industrial zoned property. It's an M1 zone. And I worked on the permit for that. They may have had, our code may require a higher fence height for that. I'm not sure. I'm kind of just speaking off the top of my head, but But it's a different zoning.
Okay. Well, I don't think that an extra, foot and a half of wooden fence I get probably isn't appropriate or attractive, but a lattice I think is a way of sort of topping off the structure and has some transparency and adds a little bit of architectural detail. I think that would make the site look better if we could construct some kind of an exception that would permit that.
I'm guessing you couldn't do that on the bifold door part.
No, no, that's true.
So it wouldn't be on the parking lot side, which would be okay. That's more of an industrial area look anyhow.
Yeah.
I think anything over 6'6" would also require a permit and probably engineering. That it would in the county. I don't know if it would in the city. But.
Yeah, I always regard the lattice as just as an ornament more than anything else. I mean, I don't know if it requires, redesign of, the fencing plan, but again, I don't know.
Okay, well, looks like we have good discussion here. Does anybody want to propose a motion? We do have several conditions to add to whatever motion we end up with. Oh, one last thing. Do we want to talk about what Betty was talking about with the possibility that there's a burial site there? Or is that...
Well, I think, again, they're doing surface improvements. They're bringing in gravel. They're going to do post holes for the fence, bigger post holes if they're going above 6.5 feet, but it's pretty minor. I actually am not sure that that's correct. We have some mapping and we'll check, but I am not of the understanding that that area is a known cultural site.
Okay, that would have been news to me too, but I haven't been here forever, so I don't know. Susan, you were going to say something?
I think, in my experience, it's not a known cultural site, and it's been disturbed previously, and any new disturbance is going to be, if it's the post holes, very minor and not that deep. So I think it'd be good, Nancy, to check, but in my experience, I don't think that's been an issue there. So.
Oh, and I would be remiss if I didn't say this while Jake and Edgar were listening, but obviously there would be no plumbing, no electrical to these C trains, and I know when these things are there for extended periods, sometimes they just kind of grow into little offices, and they end up with lamps and ceiling fans and plumbing fixtures, and we obviously don't want to see any of that. And I know that's not part of the approval today, but that would be something we would not want to see, unless Nancy can correct me if I'm wrong. So.
No, you're correct.
All right. So are we ready for a motion? Anybody want to propose one?
I could.
Looks like Susan wants to give her a go. We have those few conditions.
Yeah, I'll give it a go. Let's see. I move that we approve Coastal Development Permit CDP 20-022 and Conditional Use Permit CUP 20-12 to allow the new recycling center consisting of two 216 square foot cargo containers on a 750 square foot gravel pad in the designated area, with the three conditions added by Ms. Hubbard. Do I need to repeat that?
Clean site, fence maintenance for condition and function, and review facility and operation in 1 year. And just to caveat to your motion, because it was very specific, there is already a condition in there that if they review the fence and container configuration and the site needs to change from the original 750, it can with administrative review and approval.
Excellent. Okay.
Is that clear, Nancy, in the condition?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's actually in the.
It's in the resolution.
It's in the resolution. Yeah, I was looking at the agenda instead of the actual resolution there, but.
I'm happy to second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion before we call the vote?
The one discussion I'd have isn't to Joe's issue of the potential for adding a little bit of higher lattice work, is perhaps we allow it to be built as they've planned. And then if, we see that it's really looking unsightly, we could suggest adding that during the review. Does that make sense, Joe, to you, or?
Yeah, I could certainly go along with that. I was thinking about that. But with respect to the trees, I think this is an opportunity to increase a little bit of planting in the area that needs it, and it would add to the screening that I'm already, a little bit negative about. I would like to see some additional tree or two planted on that side street.
I wonder if we couldn't just tell them that, say, hey, Jake and Edgar, if you could talk to Spencer's, because they're leasing, they're in a contract. So I wonder if we just tell them, hey, we would prefer to see some, but we don't want to mandate it, right? Or maybe we do, so.
Well, I think we should. We're in the business of trying to screen as best we can,
So again, it's a 1-year agreement with Spencer's, and the trees are probably street trees along Elena. And if we're going to mandate they plant trees, then maybe you should just say they should plant vines along the fence, something cheaper that grows faster. That's going to be more effective and then might eliminate the need for lattice.
I'd be concerned about the watering issues. So
well, trees need water too.
Exactly, for both. That's who's going to.
My opinion is they don't need a condition to plant additional landscaping. You've made it very clear. So if they can, and if Spencer's wants to, then they have the right on their property, but I'm not sure that their agreement allows them to plant trees on a vacant parcel.
That would be my opinion as well. I think that, mandating Spencer's do something to accommodate a 1-year lease is, especially a 30-year tree or a 60-year tree, that could be, a little bit onerous, but especially because I want to make sure that this goes through. But that's just my opinion. So.
Okay, well, I'll raise the same point a year from now when we'll have a chance to evaluate it. Okay.
I agree with that. I think that's a great idea.
Okay, so it sounds like we have a motion and a second. We had some discussion. Do we have any more discussion? Going once, going twice. All right, Cindy, would you please call the question?
How about I do it?
Oh, I'm sorry, Nancy. Go ahead. I don't know who's running this thing here.
Commissioner Stewart.
Yes.
Commissioner Graffia.
Aye.
Commissioner Ford.
Yes.
Commissioner Roshan.
Yes.
Chair Barone.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion passes 5-0. All right. So let me pull my agenda up. Sorry, 1 second here. So we are moving on to item C, new business. Cindy, do we have any new business? Or Nancy?
Sorry, I inadvertently closed my agenda, and I was trying to open it up before you got to that. I don't think there is anything on the under new business or under old business items.
Okay, I don't see there anything either. I just wanted to make sure I gave you the opportunity to speak there. Item D would be unfinished business. I don't see anything there either. All right, so we'll move along and we'll go to item E, Planning Commissioner comments and future agenda items. This is the part of the meeting where planning commissioners can basically say whatever they want. Except for items not on the agenda. We'll have to bring those up formally. But does anybody wish to say anything? Okay, seeing none, I will just go on record and welcome in our new commissioners. They've done an excellent job. Bill and Jen, thank you for volunteering your time. I know it's a lot of time, and your Tuesdays are now ours for the foreseeable future, and happy to have you along, and I'm happy to do anything you need. If obviously Scott and Cindy are your points of contact, but if there's anything I can do, please reach out. And all right.
You run a great meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you. Item F, Cindy, Community Development Director comments.
Yes. So I do have some comments for you. So as you know, I think it was just a couple of meetings ago that the Commission finished the review of Plan Morro Bay, and that will be coming back to you soon. What's been happening currently is we got the EIR finished its circulation with the State Clearinghouse in early December. We got the response to comments prepared by the consultant, and staff looked at that. That actually was just the final EIR document was just received by staff at the end of the day today. I don't think we'll meet the publishing deadline for the next meeting, but you should be seeing it at the first meeting in March. And we want to get it up on the website early, so it would be a bit onerous if you were suddenly looking at it 2 weeks from today. Our goal is to give you, like we did with the Plan Morro Bay document, you can see that a couple of weeks in advance. And so we'll be bringing that to the Commission in March. You'll see that EIR document with the final Plan Morro Bay document. And I just realized as I say that, we also need the final Plan Morro Bay document as well from the PlaceWorks consultant. So that might not be the first meeting in March, it might be the second meeting in March, but that is coming soon. So that's exciting to get through that long, many years process.
Yeah, so Jen and Bill, only several thousand pages of reading in the next couple months.
Yeah, and just when you think that it'll be a busy late winter and early spring, as soon as we're done with that, we'll follow that up with the zoning code for review, adoption, and eventual certification. So exciting stuff.
And the residential design guidelines are coming shortly after that, or I'm trying to remember which one we were working on. Was it residential or non-residential?
I think there was a desire by former Chairperson Lohr for commercial design guidelines.
Commercial design.
Yeah. I don't know if that's on the City Council work plan because I don't have that at the forefront of my mind, but I know that the Commission has expressed that interest in wanting to work on that. There is no shortage of long-range planning endeavors to do this year. Yeah, can I answer any questions about that?
All right. Seeing none. Is that it, Cindy?
Yeah, that's it.
All right, Joe.
I just had one question. You know, I was saddened as well as so many other people about the Morro Bay movie theater being up for sale, and I just wondered if there was any news on, you know, potential interested buyers or plans or anything, because it's if we lose the theater, it will certainly be a loss to the community.
Yeah, and I did mention that to Scott because, you know, it's featured prominently in our downtown waterfront strategic plan. I can see the picture. It's I think in a post-COVID world, movie theaters are, I don't know if it's going to be tough for them economically. I hope that everyone comes back and we're raring to, you know, get back to normal. So I don't know what the market's looking like for that, but certainly, you know, maybe it's an opportunity to reimagine what that facility could be if it's like a multi-venue event space, similar to how the Fremont kind of reinvented itself when, you know, that was a big thing when they stopped playing regular movies there a few years ago in San Luis Obispo. Yeah. So.
Well, as a stand-up comedian, I would love to see it be a comedy house, but I don't think that would work. But you know, maybe we can imagine all arts.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, focus on comedy, but we'll let those other guys, you know, get a crack at it too. But
I've heard that from the community though a lot. Everybody I talked to said that they would love to see it as multi-use. You know, utilize that stage space, and yeah, I think that's a great idea. Hoping.
Yeah. The city council and the chamber can work something out and get some investment group in there maybe and do something good. So
yeah, it is such a unique community resource, and just, you know, just such a great location, and it just, yeah.
All right. Well, we have come to the end of our meeting. If nobody has anything else, I'll take a motion for adjournment, or do I just adjourn? I'm not sure. I forget how that goes.
I think you get to just say, we're done.
All right. Well, we will adjourn this meeting, and we will adjourn to our next regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting, which will be the 16th of February, Tuesday, and we will be doing it via Zoom probably for the next foreseeable future. So thank you, everybody, for coming, and thank you, everybody, for your comments and your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.